the dust, darling, like the streaming past. So she learnt to lie, she learnt how to pretend. A drama in the future, a means to an end. I can't
B-I to the S-E-X-U-A. It's a L if you hating on me, bitch, I slay. No, I am not gay, and no, I am not straight. I'm the B in this bitch, pop pride all day. I like girls, I like guys.
One of the most controversial and misunderstood sexual orientations is demisexuality. So let's talk about what demisexuality is and why it's not just a preference. People who are demisexual only experience sexual attraction once they've formed a close bond to someone. Now, upon hearing this definition, a lot of people think, that's normal. So many people don't sleep with a person they've just met. Well, yes, but these people are completely misunderstanding what demisexual is. Sure, lots of people are going to want to be close with someone before they have sex with them, but they still experience sexual attraction. They are still attracted to that person and lots of other people, despite not having sex with them. Demisexuals do not experience this. They are completely asexual. They do not experience sexual attraction at all until they form a close bond with someone, and then they start to develop attraction for just that person. That's why asexuality is a spectrum, and demisexuality is totally valid.
I love lesbians. That's a whole group of people got together, looked at men, and went, nah. No, thank you.
Do you find boys attractive? Or girls? That's one way to check if you're not sure. You think I'm not sure? Everyone's attractive, to be honest. Even if it's just something small, like some people have really beautiful hands. I don't know. I'm a little bit in love with everyone I meet. But I think that's normal.
How can you believe in God and still support transgender people? I mean, I thought that God doesn't make any mistakes. Right, God doesn't make mistakes, which is exactly why you should support transgender people. This is a question I get quite often. I'm a cisgender person, so if I'm stepping on any toes, please let me know. But I want to share with y'all some things that I've learned in my gender psychology classes and in my religious study. So number one, yes, God makes no mistake. And if you truly believe that God molded us in our mother's womb, then you must understand that God makes people transgender. Various psychological studies have found that the brains of transgender women are actually more identical to the brains of cisgender women as opposed to cisgender men, meaning that transgender people's brains behave more similarly to the gender they identify as opposed to the gender that they were assigned at birth. Number two, this idea that making someone transgender would be making a mistake is just a result of our transphobic society. Many cultures throughout history have actually celebrated transgender people. In indigenous cultures, for example, transgender people are called two-spirit people. And not only are they seen as a gift from God, but are also seen as assets to their community because of their unique perspective and ability. In summation, God's not transphobic, babe. It's just a people thing.
Pride flag meanings in 30 seconds or less. Agender is an identity to describe someone that entirely lacks a gender or with complete genderlessness. It falls under the non-binary umbrella in which one is not male, female, neutral, or any other gender. They may identify most strongly as just an individual rather than as any given gender. Since it is a lack of gender, some feel it shouldn't be labeled as a gender at all. Others see the label agender as a declaration that they are whole without a gender. Agender people can be of any sexuality and should not be confused with being asexual. Gender fluid is a term used to describe someone who does not identify with a fixed gender identity, but rather experiences their gender identity as a fluid or flexible concept that can change over time. People who identify as gender fluid may experience their gender as a combination of both masculine and feminine traits, or as something completely outside of the traditional binary of male or female. The experience of gender fluidity can vary widely between individuals and can change quickly in the matter of hours or slowly over months or even years. The gender fluid flag represents different aspects of the gender spectrum. Pink represents femininity, white represents the lack of gender, purple represents a combination of masculinity and femininity, black represents all other genders, and blue represents masculinity. Together, the colors represent the idea that gender is a complex and multifaceted concept that can be fluid and flexible, and that people should be free to express their gender in whatever way feels authentic to them.
Have you heard of LGBTQ+? Well, I am the D in the plus. That means I partially identify as female. I'm a demi-girl and I love to be me.
According to wikia.org, a demi-boy is a gender identity describing someone who partially but not wholly identifies as a man or a boy, regardless of their assigned gender at birth. Oh, and that's disappeared. They may or may not identify as another gender in addition to feeling partially boy or a man. if you want to read.
What does it mean to be asexual? Asexuality is a sexual orientation, just like pansexuality, bisexuality, or heterosexuality. There's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot to know, so let's get into it. Asexuality ultimately means you feel no, little, or conditional sexual attraction or desire for sex. And there are a lot of ways to be asexual. Some asexuals are sex repulsed or sex averse, which means they do not have sex for any reason. Some asexuals are sex favorable, which means they have sex with people for reasons that might be different from someone who is allosexual, like wanting to connect with a partner or experience the bodily sensations. Allosexual is the opposite sexual orientation to asexual. It means you do feel sexual attraction or desire for sex. Along the asexual spectrum, also known as the ace spectrum, are sexual orientations like graysexual, which is someone who doesn't really crave sex or experience sexual attraction but does occasionally have sex. And demisexual, someone whose sexual attraction or desire is conditional upon whether there is a deep bond or some kind of emotional connection. That's not the same as waiting until there's an emotional connection.
Polyamory means you are in or open to being in intimate relationships with more than one person.
Since they can be hard to define, it's helpful to define 3 things that polyamory is not.
First, it's not polygamy. Do you know any couples who are polyamorous?
Like that guy on TLC with a bunch of wives? I mean, what's in it for the women?
That's polygamy, but polyamory is when anyone feels the desire to share love with more than one person. Second, it's not the same thing as an open relationship. Open relationships typically include 2 partners who agree to see other people, usually with an agreement of what they can or can't do with additional partners.
And finally, third, polyamory is not cheating, swinging, or an orgy.
Poly relationships look different from person to person, but the central belief is that you can love more than one person at any given time.
What's bigender, you may ask? A bigender person identifies as both a man and a woman, so they feel that both of those identities are encompassed within them. Some bigender people just call themselves non-binary and go by they-them pronouns. LGBTQ gender identity terms that you might not have heard of before, but I will explain to you. What is gender fawn? Someone who is gender fawn experiences fluctuations in gender, but never fluctuates to any feminine gender. For example, they could fluctuate from feeling a masculine gender, an unaligned gender, or a genderless gender, such as agender, but they never fluctuate to any feminine genders, such as demigirl, female, anything in between that, like Libra feminine. Some people consider it to be a non-feminine subset of gender fluid, so you just fluctuate to everything apart from feeling feminine. This is the other side of gender fey, which I explained in a previous video. Now, just like gender fey, there is a subset to this which is called gender fawnit. Someone who is gender fawnit experiences fluctuations in gender and can experience feminine genders, but never feels fully female. This is
Hi, I'm kind of confused. I just want to know, are you a man or a woman with a beard?
Well, actually, I identify as gender non-binary. Do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
Right. Okay, so gender non-binary is someone who identifies on the spectrum of male and female in between, right? So I identify not as either or, but somewhere within the middle.
Okay, what do I call you then?
Well, my pronouns are she, her, he, him, or they, them.
But isn't that confusing when it comes to like sex and stuff?
No, actually it does not affect my sexuality. Everything about my sexuality has nothing to do with my gender identity. These are 2 different entities.
Damn, I didn't know that. So you just taught me something. Thank you.
Somewhere in these eyes, I'm on your side.
To talk about the intersex flag. The intersex pride flag is quite different from traditional pride flags, which typically have a number of different colored stripes, and this was by design. In 2013, Morgan Carpenter of the organization Intersex International in Australia designed the intersex pride flag with a yellow background and a purple circle. Carpenter says that the circle represents the fact that we as intersex people are unbroken and unornamented, that we are whole and complete exactly as we are. Additionally, Carpenter chose the colors yellow and purple because they were far enough away from the colors of blue and pink.
Pride flag meanings in 30 seconds or less. Abrosexual refers to an individual whose sexuality is changing or fluid. For example, someone could be gay one day, then asexual the next, then polysexual the next. The Greek root abro means delicate or graceful, and symbolizes the movement and changing nature of people who are abrosexual. While it is possible and even common for a person's sexual identity to shift or change in some way through their life, an abrosexual person's sexuality might change more frequently over the course of hours, days, months, or years.
Gender flex pride flag. Gender flex is a catch-all phrase for gender identities, in which one's gender or sense of the intensity of one's gender changes over time. A person who is gender flex experiences a range of intensity within a gender identity. Gender flex is different than gender fluid. Gender fluid is where your gender changes along the gender spectrum, which can include any amount of genders. Gender flex is where your gender changes in intensity, so going between full intensity boy, partial intensity demoboy, and no intensity agender. These are just the definitions I have found. Keep in mind that someone else may have a different definition or relation to the identity.
Pride flag meanings in 30 seconds or less. Genderfay, also sometimes called gender doe, is a term for a type of gender identity which is fluid between multiple genders but never male or masculine genders. This is different from the binary gender female because it may include genders other than male or female. It can be between male and female, the feeling of no gender, or any other non-binary gender. The masculine counterpart to genderfay is genderfawn, but I'll get to that in another video of